Hey guys, it's Lucky Ghost here, and today we're going to be going over the passives, particularly the passives that every single character you ever make and have ever made should absolutely have. There are a lot of passives in this game that are specific to a certain build, but there are also a lot of passives in this game that are so good that every character that is ever made should definitely should definitely have them. First up, let's talk about the Fighters Guild. The Fighters Guild has two passives that I consider to be worth grabbing on pretty much every toon, but the first one especially, Intimidating Presence. This allows you to intimidate NPCs in conversation. This will open up dialogue options that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to access. This is going to make it easier to get through certain quests more efficiently, and this also happens to reduce the stamina cost of your Fighters Guild abilities. So if you're a stamina toon taking advantage of some of these abilities, this is going to be helpful there as well. Next up, Banish the Wicked. You generate 9 ultimate whenever you kill an undead, a Daedra, or a werewolf. So more ult regen, that's always nice. This is helpful, especially if you happen to be killing things. All right, next up, we've got Mage's Guild. The Mage's Guild has Persuasive Will passive, which works very similar to Intimidate, but with a more eloquent spin on it. You've got Persuasive Will, which allows you to persuade NPCs in conversations. Just like Intimidating Presence, it's going to open up dialogue options that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to access, allowing you to get through those quests sometimes a little more efficiently. Next up, we have the Undaunted Guild. This guild has two passives that are absolutely essential for every single character that you make in Elder Scrolls Online. They are too good to pass up, and they're very easy to get. The first one is the Undaunted Command. Activating an ally's synergy restores 4% of your max health, stamina, and magicka. So as you can see here, if I activate a synergy on this character, I get 643 health, 1,171 stamina, and 388 magicka. This is essential for your character's sustain when playing with a group, and you have a healer or other characters in the group throwing out synergies that you can take advantage of. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to grab those synergies, and activating those synergies will oftentimes give you a buff, as well as giving you these resources back. Very crucial to your sustain, especially in endgame play. Next up, we've got Undaunted Metal. Increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% per type of armor, heavy, medium, light, that you have equipped. My character is a stamina toon. Right now, the stamina meta is to go 7 pieces of stamina because the first 3 passives right here give us bonuses per piece of medium armor equipped, and they're just too good to pass up. We get more critical rating, we get more recovery and cost reduction, and so therefore, because of these first 2 passives, we're just gonna go 7 pieces of medium and max out the amount of damage that we're putting out full glass cannon on our stamina toons. For mag toons, you're typically going to take advantage of that Undaunted passive by going 5-1-1, which means for mag toons and for healers, 5-1-1, and also tanks typically go 5-1-1. You'll see them go 5 of their armor types. So mag toons, mag DPS, and healers are going to go 5 pieces of light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, which is going to give them access to all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passives, max them all out. And then you go for the first 3 of the next 2 lines. The last 2 passives in each armor line, you only get access to those when you're wearing 5 pieces of that type of armor. So don't bother getting the last 2 passives. If you're going 5-1-1, get the one set that you're wearing 5 of, which would be light if you're mag DPS or a healer, or heavy if you're a tank. And then on the other 2, just pick up the first 3. That's going to bring you up to, when you're 5-1-1, it increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% per piece. So that's going to be 6% increased health, stam, and mag on those tanks and mag toons that are taking advantage of this passive with 5-1-1 setup. Very useful. No matter which setup you decide to go, this passive is fantastic. And it's useful, and it helps you get to those HP and resource pool thresholds that you want to hit. The next passive that is useful on every single toon you make is going to be in the crafting line. For alchemy, there is Medicinal Use. When you use a potion, the resulting effects last 30% longer. Now, what this means is, when you hover over this potion, at the bottom there it says, it lasts for 47 seconds with a 45-second cooldown. That's because I have Medicinal Use level 3. So this potion is now lasting 30% longer than it otherwise would have. It would have been running out well before that 45-second cooldown, which would mean there would be time where I didn't have my 20% increased weapon damage, my 2,191 weapon critical rating increase, and my 20% increased stamina recovery that this potion provides. By maxing out Medicinal Use, we get those 3 things 100% of the time while we are in combat. There's no downtime, which is essential. The next 2 I'm going to talk about are kind of debatable. It depends if your character is going to be doing writs or not. Now, if you're very diligent about doing writs on all of your characters, then this is definitely useful for all of your characters, okay? And that is Metalworking and the subsequent equivalent in the other crafting lines. Having this maxed out when on a character that does writs increases your chances of getting gold materials as a reward for turning in your writs by 30%. So every time you turn in a writ, you have a 30% chance of getting a gold material in return. This is huge. And you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4. You're doing how many different writs on each character a day? That results in a lot of gold materials per character per day. That adds up really fast. It's not just the gold that you make from turning in your writs. That's a very common mistake. It's also the gold materials that you get as a reward for turning in those writs that is incredibly important to making that a profitable endeavor. And last but not least, this one's going to be absolutely beneficial to have on every single character, and that is the extraction passive for each of these lines. Any tune, you've got a couple of options. You could dump every single piece of gear that you find into the bank and let the one character that got this passive leveled up. You could let that character deconstruct things to increase your chances of pulling good materials out of that gear when you deconstruct it. Or you could grab this passive on every character, which is probably what you might end up doing down the road, because skill points are not hard to come by. You will have more than you know what to do with by the end of the game. So when you get to that point, when you have extra skill points lying around and you're not sure what to do with them, definitely consider putting them into the extraction passives so that you're extracting better quality ingredients out of these materials when you deconstruct gear. Especially start with probably jewelry crafting extraction, because these materials are so expensive. So anytime you can upgrade your jewelry to purple or gold without having to go to a guild trader to buy it, you're saving yourself a ton of money. Or, if you want, you could sell it and make money that way. Next up, we've got armor passives. Every character is going to get their armor passives. If you are a Magicka tune, you're going to grab your light armor passives, and you're going to grab all of them. If you're a medium armor tune, like a stamina DPS, you're going to grab all the medium armor passives. And if you're a tank, you're going to grab all of the heavy armor passives. Healers and mag DPS will also grab the first 3 medium armor passives and the first 3 heavy armor passives. Tanks will grab all 5 heavy, but they will also grab the first 3 medium and the first 3 light armor passives. But regardless of what type of character you're building, you're always going to grab your character's armor passives. Next up is your racial passives. Every tune is always going to grab all of their racial passives. They generally tend to be pretty worthwhile and they're easy to get, so why not? Be sure to take advantage of those racial passives. Don't forget to grab those. They tend to be more impactful than most other passives in the game. All right, the next one we're going to go over are your weapon skill lines and their passives. If you're using a weapon, you want all of that weapon's passives. All right, whether it's on your front bar or your back bar, just grab them all. Two-hander, use all the two-hander passives. If you're doing one-hand and shield, grab all the one-hand and shield passives. You've got 2 bars, so make sure to grab the passives for both your front and your back bar weapons. The last set of passives that everybody needs is going to be your specific class passives. Each class typically has a damage skill line, a healing skill line, and a tank skill line. Some classes are more clearly delineated than others. The Necromancer, for example, is pretty well defined, right? The first one is our damage abilities. The second one is our tanking abilities. And the third one is our healing abilities and their corresponding passives. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get the tank passives on your DPS tune, right? But you will definitely want to get all your DPS passives on your DPS tune, okay? So it's very beneficial to read these passives, right? There's only 5 in each one. I know it sounds like a daunting task if you're a new player, but there's some very beneficial passives at play here, and it's really going to affect how you play your class. The way you play your class and the way you set up your bars is very much determined by these 5 passives at the bottom of each skill line for your class, right? There's so much to be said about how these passives are determining the things that you're doing while you're playing your class. For instance, we've got the Bone Tyrant one. The Bone Tyrant passive right here, Last Grasp, which increases my max health by 1,250. Whether I'm a tank, I'm a DPS, I'm a healer, I mean, having an extra 1,250 health is absolutely worth the 2 skill points that I put into it. So be sure to read these passives. Ultimately, you'll probably want to grab all of them because they tend to be helpful in some situation or another, especially when you get into solo arenas and you start equipping, maybe a tank ability for damage mitigation or a healing ability for self-preservation. And then all of a sudden, all of these passives become incredibly useful. So ultimately, you'll likely end up with just about all of them on your character so that you're ready for group content, solo content, and more. And that about concludes all the must-have passives for every character, no matter what they're making, okay? Next, let's talk about the honorable mentions. These are passives that I love to have on my primary toon, and I wish I had on every single one of my 18 alts, that just some of them are quite a bit of a pain in the butt to unlock. Some are quite difficult. And we'll talk about those right now. So if you're looking for fun passives to have on one toon or all of your toons, here's my favorites, okay? First up, let's talk about Locksmith from the Legerdemain. All right, Locksmith right here. Improves your chance of forcing locks by 70%. You can walk up to chests and just force them by pressing one button. You bypass the entire lockpicking minigame. If you're new to the game, you probably enjoy the lockpicking minigame. It's a lot of fun, but when you get to the point where you've unlocked thousands of these chests and you just want to get through the dungeon efficiently, it's nice to be able to walk up to a chest and pop it and auto loot it and move on to the next thing and start killing stuff again. Again, I'm so spoiled by this, and every time I jump onto a toon that doesn't have force lock, I always miss it as I'm sitting there playing the lockpicking minigame for the 1,500 trillionth time. All right, and next up we've got Shadow Rider from the Dark Brotherhood. This is a nice passive. I wish I had on more toons. It's great for like when you just want to jump on your mount and ride to maybe a door that you want to interact with or some kind of object. And you don't want to have a ton of mobs trailing behind you, because then if they're trailing behind you, they're going to run after you for nearly infinity, right? And you can't interact with things, you can't open the door, and you have to wait for them to come and hit you once and pretend they're gonna battle you, but then they become invulnerable and they run away, right? No longer. If you've got Shadow Rider, I mean, that says decreases it by 50%, but you can literally ride almost right over top of enemies. And as long as you're sprinting, like by the time they notice you, you're gone and they don't engage. So it's really difficult to get stuck in combat while you have this passive activated. Next up, the next fun one that I love to have, and I wish I had it on more characters, but it's a pain in the butt to get, and that's going to be the Excavating passive Kenai Treasure Chest. Fantastic passive. It makes it almost impossible to miss chests in dungeons and in trials, and when you're running around the content, they're just so much more obvious, and I'll show you what that looks like here. Okay, so here's an example of a chest I might have missed if I was just spelunking. I might have run right by it without noticing it's there. You see the blue glow coming up from behind this? Well, that's the Kenai Treasure Chest doing work right there. Because of this, I miss 1,000% less chests in dungeons and trials and in the overland content than I otherwise would have. All right, and now we'll demonstrate force picking, okay, which is the passive that I mentioned from Legerdemain. Improves your chances of forcing locks by 70%. Okay, so it's an advanced chest. So I had a 5% chance to start, an additional 70% on top of that, which brings us up to a 75% chance to force this lock. So now if I just press R, boom, it automatically opened the chest for me. I didn't have to play the minigame, and I've got my Mother Sorrow, my purple Mother Sorrow gloves there, and I can go on with my day. That passive right there has saved me probably hours of time spent in the minigame of lockpicking throughout the thousands of chests I've opened while playing this game. It's a great one to have if you are willing to level up your antiquities system and get your excavating up to level 10. All right, guys, that concludes the list of must-have passives, as well as a couple of honorable mentions that I tacked on to the end there. The passives that I just find to be incredibly helpful or fun or handy, but won't necessarily improve your character's performance. But do be sure to grab all of the earlier passives that I mentioned on every single toon. They're absolutely essential, and they will do wonders for your character's development. Well, that's everything. So, hey, I'm Lucky Ghost. I stream ESO 5 days a week. If you want to hang out with someone else that loves ESO, swing by my stream sometime and let's hang out. Be sure to swing by eso.justlootit.com for written guides, build guides, and more.